The Word was with God, and the Word was God. And when you hear the word from God, it will enable you to experience your divine nature. We are going through the Gospel of Mark, chapter 13. This particular chapter is rather intriguing, in which we find two unusual prophecies of Jesus as to what's going to transpire after his crucifixion. So therefore it says, and as he went out of the temple, one of his disciples saith unto him, Master, see what manner of stones and what buildings are here. As Jesus and his disciples, as they came out of the temple in Jerusalem, one of his disciples pointed to Jesus and said, what manner of stone, what a glorious structure is here in the form of the temple. And around it, what buildings are, what magnificent buildings. For it was a magnificent temple built after the exile from Babylon. Once again, they rebuilt the temple, and along with all the structures, and this is pointed out by one of the disciples. And Jesus answering said unto him, Seest thou these? Now you see all these, this beautiful, magnificent, this structure, great buildings there. Seest thou these great buildings? You see all these great buildings? There shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. That is to say, the entire structure will be destroyed. Not even one stone will be left. Stone after stone, it was built like a huge fortress. The temple itself is magnificent. The courtyards and the surroundings, town of Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem. So Jesus says, there shall not be left one stone upon another in due course. But he didn't tell when at the moment. We just mentioned that. And actually, this transpired about 65 AD, when the Romans, so after the demise of Jesus, 35 years later, around about 65 AD, the Romans invaded and destroyed the entire temple complex. In fact, they used a form of catapulting and destroying these huge stones and brought them down. So that was in 65 AD itself. So Jesus says, not one stone will be left. He's seeing what will be the fate of this temple. Subsequently, that was a prophecy which came aright, round about 65 AD. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, over against the temple, Peter and James and John and Andrew asked him privately, tell us, when shall these things be? When shall these things be? Tell us. And what shall be the sign when all these things shall be fulfilled? When will it take place? Tell us this. When will it take place? And what are the signs when all these things shall be fulfilled? And Jesus answering them began to say, take heed, lest any man deceive you. Take heed, be careful, be wary. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. For many will come, stating that I am the Christ, I am the Christ. After Jesus' crucifixion, there would be many in some form, some sort or the other, who would turn up and declare to you that he is the Christ, he is the Christ. But be careful, don't get deceived. But when you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, but you will be hearing about wars and rumors of wars too. Both go together. There are rumors of war, and there will be actual wars too. Be you not troubled. Don't be troubled about it. For such things must needs be. For such things always happen in the human world. Always in some part of the world or the other, you find that people are always warring one with the other. Kingdoms at war with one another is a natural thing in the human race. So don't worry about, for such things must needs be. But even then, but the end shall not yet be. But the end times that I am going to talk to you, that will not be yet. Till then, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be earthquakes in diverse places. So in the meantime, kingdoms, because there were various kingdoms there, the Babylonian kingdom, the Assyrians, the Egyptians, and some Syrians, so many other kingdoms, all, and the Romans too. All those kingdoms were there, and they were warring with each other at all times. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And as a result of this, there shall be earthquake, and there shall be also earthquakes in diverse places. In many parts of that Middle East, there would be earthquakes too. In fact, people don't realize that even at the time of the crucifixion of Jesus, there was a mighty earthquake which shook the whole area. People could not comprehend as to what its significance was. Just at the time of crucifixion of Jesus, that earthquake transpired, and it was felt as far as Greece. So earthquakes in diverse places will take place, and there shall be famines and troubles, and there shall be famine also. So famines are induced by wars. Wars create famines. And also lack of rain induces famine. So there shall be famines and troubles too. The human race will be put into great trouble. And these are the beginnings of sorrows. And this is the beginning of your sorrow. That's not the end of it. That's the beginning of it. So you're going to get even more sorrows after that. But take heed to yourself, for they shall deliver you up to councils. But as far as you are concerned, as far as you, the apostles, the disciples of Jesus are concerned, but take heed to yourself. You had better be careful, all of you. Take heed. For why? For they shall be delivered up to councils, and you, the followers who are my followers, followers of Jesus, they shall deliver you up to councils, and they shall deliver you to councils for jurisdiction, to the local citizens, to the local courts, and to the local bodies for questioning for being the followers of Jesus, who has brought about, who has given a new teaching, So you'll be questioned. So people will deliver you up to councils, and in the synagogues you shall be beaten. And not only that, these in the synagogues, that is the temples, the synagogues, you'll be led there and you'll be beaten there. You'll be scourged with ropes, all for being my disciples, for being my followers, for being my followers and my disciples. And in the synagogues you shall be beaten, and you shall be brought before rulers and kings. And you also shall be brought before the rulers and the kings, before the Roman Empire, the Roman emperors, rulers and kings for my sake, for being my followers, for my sake, for being my followers and teaching propounding and propagating my teaching, whatever I have taught, for pronouncing these teachings of mine, and pronouncing myself as the Messiah. You shall be persecuted, and you shall be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them. For being so, therefore, for being followers of mine, you shall be brought before the imperial court of Rome and persecuted there. And that's what exactly happened. They were Nero set them in the arena, the Roman arena. The Christians were sent to be eaten up and slaughtered by the lions. So like this, the Christians, the followers of Jesus, were persecuted time and again. So you shall be brought for my sake, for being my followers, all for being my followers. And for a testimony against them, and as a living evidence. So you are a living evidence. Your presence and your following, being followers of me and my teachings, that means you are a living testimony that you are propounding a new religion, advocating a new, when you use the word religion, means a new teaching. You're propounding a new teaching, which is in contrary to our established values. So therefore, you should be persecuted, you will be killed. But nevertheless, he says, nevertheless, guard yourself. So be careful. Take heed. Be careful about all those. But at the same time, and the gospel must first be published among all nations. Now, this is a very pertinent sentence given by Jesus. He says, and the gospels must first be published, must be announced, must be broadcast amongst all nations. That means the gospels, which is the announcement of the good teachings, which the Messiah had come and delivered with respect to your divine nature. You are God's as to who and what you are. This truth, because this is a very intriguing truth, which the human race at that time found it difficult to absorb. How is it that we could be your gods? This remarkable truth has to be. So that's what the good news is. Gospel means the good news. What better news than that could you have? Than to know that I and my Father are one, that the Father is in me, and I exist in the Father, and therefore we are one. This is the good news, and this gospel has to be pronounced all over. And also the gospel teaches you and shows you the announcement is not alone is not sufficient. It must practically show you the way to. That's part of the four gospels. The four gospels show you the way. It is the quintessence. If you can understand, if a person was ignorant of all other scriptures of the world, but if he only solely looked into the four gospels without any bias or prejudice, he would find the door to salvation, the way to salvation, beautifully laid out there in direct, clear form. Of course, here and there, it is mystically worded too. But otherwise, the teaching in the four Gospels is self-complete for man's salvation, provided it is rightly understood. And for you to rightly understand it, you must be rightly taught. That's what's important. You cannot be given a distorted, a misleading interpretation and a teaching. This much may I tell you, that the Gospels, the four Gospels, have got a mystical content, which is very much different from what the church pronounces as its creed and the church doctrine. They are two different things. And therefore, this teaching which is contained, the way to salvation which is contained, is meant for the entire human race, irrespective of whether the person is a so-called Christian by birth or so-called member of any other religious community. It matters little indeed. It has no connection with that. So the teachings contained in the four Gospels has got no connection with the religions of the world. It stands in its own right. Its teaching stands in its own right as a way to salvation, just as much as the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita do not propound a Hindu religion, but as a teaching, they stand on their own right, which reveal and show you the way to enlightenment, to your divine status. So also as far as the four Gospels are concerned, exclusively I'm mentioning the four Gospels. So what the human race requires is, as far the four Gospels, along with two other sections. One, in the book of Genesis, the first 3 chapters of the book of Genesis, is also very, very mystically worded and is very significant and important for the human race. And then along with this, the conclusion. So the entire Bible begins with the book of Genesis, and it ends with a revelation, the book of Revelations. So these two, what is the subject matter which has been propounded or opened out in the book of Genesis, finds its culmination in the book of Revelations, and in between you find the new covenant revealed by Jesus in the four Gospels. In the four Gospels. So these 3 factors, when they are collected together and understood, then they will lead you to the desired end, which is salvation. Which is salvation. And of course, the expressions, the wordings, the concepts have got a Jewish cultural overtone, but it matters little. One can see through it and understand it. So also as far as the other scriptures are concerned, they also stand in their own right. They are not a religious presentation, bringing out a particular religion. They are not standing for a religion. So the four Gospels don't stand for the Christian religion. They are meant for the entire human race as a universal teaching. So therefore the entire human race will do well to get into it, irrespective of their religious affiliations, and find a wealth of wisdom. Just as much as science is a universal science meant for the entire universe, it's not a German or a Russian or an English or an American science which is independent of each other, but It's all science is science with universal truths. So also as far as the gospel is concerned, it deals with universal truths meant for the entire human race, just as much as the Bhagavad Gita has got universal truths which are meant for the entire human race, and it doesn't talk about the Hindu religion at all. So you don't have to be a Hindu to go through the Bhagavad Gita. It has no connection. So also as far as the four gospels are concerned, you don't have to be a Christian to understand and live the gospels in your life, and you will obtain salvation and you will become one with God. So this is this remarkable universal truth which has to be propounded to the entire world. And that is why Jesus says in another section earlier itself, he says that I am the good shepherd, and the entire human race must be made into one flock. One flock. And the good shepherd will lead the flock. So the one flock is the entire human race. So when you get into become a member of this one flock, then at that point, you transcend all forms of religious affiliations, and you are now affiliated to God, to God. That's where your affiliation is. And the one shepherd is God. He is your true shepherd. I am the good shepherd, and I am the true shepherd. So God is your shepherd indeed. So for this to take place, he will shepherd you. He will lead you to green pastures and lead you to salvation. But have faith in God. So this is what Jesus had earlier mentioned, that the teachings contained here in the Gospels is meant for the entire mankind. And therefore, he says that the Gospels must be published amongst all nations. Amongst all nations. That how true it is. Just as much as the Bhagavad Gita has been published amongst all nations. So everyone must have access to that knowledge contained there, the sublime spiritual wisdom knowledge. And the two corroborate each other. The four Gospels and the Bhagavad Gita, they mutually complement and supplement each other in their mystical teachings. And when you go through both of them, you will become the wiser. Your spiritual path will be more clear to you. It will become more clear to you. So therefore, that's what he says, and the gospel must first be published amongst all nations. Then, having said this much, he continues and says, but when they shall lead you, in line number 11, when they shall lead you and deliver you up, take no thought beforehand what you shall speak, neither do you premeditate, but whatsoever shall be given you in that hour, that speak you, for it is not you that speak, but the Holy Ghost. So what this particular paragraph means is, Jesus is telling his disciples as to what will befall them in the meantime, after his crucifixion. They shall lead you, the powers that be, the religious powers and the rulers, they shall lead you and deliver you up for persecution, and maybe to be martyred unto death. But nevertheless, take no thought about it. Don't worry about it. No thought beforehand what you shall speak. So don't try to even think about how you shall defend yourself. They'll accuse you. They will accuse you for no good reason. So therefore, don't worry about it, nor do you think about as to what reply you should give to them when they accuse you of certain things. Neither do you premeditate about it. Don't think about it even. Just peacefully be for the time being. But whatsoever shall be given you in that hour, but in that hour when your trial has come, in that particular hour of trial, that you speak whatever you are supposed to speak at that time as a reply. For it is not you that speak, but the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit will speak through you. So don't worry about it. Let the Holy Spirit take over and do the speaking for you. Don't worry about it as to what you have to tell in your defense. In your defense. You've got nothing to defend. When Jesus was tried, and when they asked him, when they accused him and asked him wrong questions, Jesus just remained silent. He didn't even care to reply to that. So also, as far as you are concerned, don't bother with their accusations. In case whatever you have to say in your defense, the Holy Spirit will speak through you. So don't worry about it. Just peacefully go through the process, the horrendous process. Then, in the meantime, some things will happen in the city of Jerusalem and in Israel. Because you are my followers, and there were many followers indeed, some unusual things are going to happen there. That he says, now the brother shall betray the brother to death, and the father the son, and children shall rise up against their parents, and shall cause them to be put to death. So now what's going to happen is, some members of the family will be my followers of the same family. Some members of each family will be my followers, and some members of the same family will be hostile. So as a result of this, what happens is, the brother shall betray the brother to death. So one brother in the family would betray another member of the family to death. And the father, the son, and the father too, in his anger, the son, he would speak against the son, and the children shall rise up against their parents too, and the children will also rise up against their parents. So in the same family itself, you are going to have a very unusual thing, and that is that discord in the same family. Some of the members will follow Jesus, and some will be hostile to Jesus. And invariably, when a person takes a great deal of interest in trying to lead a holy life, the first members who are hostile to it are your very family members. They are the ones. They want you to be like them. Whether they be on the right way or the faulty way, it doesn't matter. You also should be like them. But the moment you aspire for something higher and noble, then they're not quite happy with it. So this is a universal phenomenon. And here also it's naturally taking place 2,000 years ago in Israel, in Jerusalem, but in a hostile environment, because the whole society there is now being broken up. Some are beginning to be followers of Jesus. Some are still clinging on to the Jewish tradition and the Jewish religion and culture. So as a result of it, there's a great deal of discord taking place in the Middle East. And you shall be hated of all men for my name's sake. And the people around you, the populace, you shall be hated of all men. They will hate you for being my followers. For my name's sake. for my name's sake, because that means for being followers of mine. Huh? People will hate you. They will not. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. But nevertheless, with boldness of strength, with courage, with fortitude, with a higher wisdom, patiently endure their hostile approach towards you. Endure it. Huh? So endure unto the end. Till the end, endure it. Endure their unfriendly. That is why it is said, a prophet is not honored in his own home or in his hometown. Jesus declared that. The ones who were initially, even to Jesus, in his hometown, which was Nazareth, they did not want Jesus there. They were a little unfriendly and hostile to it. And even in his own family itself, they were a little skeptical about this character who is now claiming to be the Messiah, who is supposed to be the Messiah. How is it possible? So there in his own family itself, he was having a problem. And he is now indicating that you too will also be faced with a similar situation for being my followers. Because you're now going to follow and live and understand a new way of life. A new way of life with a new understanding, which has been propelled by me. So therefore, you shall be hated of all men, so they shall hate you. People want you to follow the conventional ways. If somebody gets out of the acknowledged conventional ways, they immediately become unfriendly and hostile. And that's the case here too. That's the case. However faulty their ways are, they wouldn't want to give it up. So therefore he says, endure unto the end. And those who endure shall be saved. They are the ones who shall be saved at the time of the calamity which is going to come later on. Now, in line number 14, he mentions, but when you shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel, the prophet, standing where it ought not. So Daniel, the prophet Daniel, in the Old Testament, prophesied in the kingdom of Babylon the impending disaster and the destruction of the city of Babylon, along with, because Daniel was taken as a captive there, but nevertheless he was acknowledged as a prophet. And the king consulted Daniel, and Daniel in his prophecy mentioned, because there was, when they were the king and the king and his troop of people were merrymaking and behaving in an improper, unethical, immoral manner, then a handwriting appeared on the wall in the palace. So that's why that popular expression which goes, the handwriting is on the wall. Many of you may have heard of that expression, the handwriting is on the wall. Or it is so, or writing is on the wall, or handwriting is on the wall. So writing will be on the wall. So these are the expressions which are mentioned, and handwriting is on the wall, and it appeared in the wall of the palace when the king and his people were merrymaking. And they couldn't understand what it was. So the king summoned the prophet Daniel, and Daniel came and read it, understood it, and told them that the handwriting implies the destruction of the entire empire of Babylon. So in a similar way also, but when you shall see the abomination of desolation. So in the same way of spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not. So therefore, when you see, just as much as the Babylon city disappeared, so also the city of Jerusalem with the temple will also similarly disappear, be brought down to ruins. So, standing where it ought not, let him that readeth understand, and let them that be in the Judea flee to the mountains. And when that destruction takes place, because it will be destroyed by the Roman army would walk into Jerusalem and decimate the entire city and the temple. And when that happens, don't remain there. That's what Jesus is saying. Don't remain anymore there, because that is the beginning of the future troubles. That's only the beginning of it. And then he says, and let him that is on the housetop not go down into the house. So if you're on the housetop, don't even take time to go into the house to pick up something. From the housetop itself, run away and let him that is on the housetop not go down into the house. Neither enter therein. Don't even enter there. You won't have the time to enter and pick up something. And to enter therein and take anything out of his house. So you may not even have time to enter the downstairs of your house to pick up something. From the top of the building, house itself, from that point itself, run away. Huh? And let him that is in the field, if you happen to be in the field, not turn back again to take up his garment. Don't go into your house to take up a dress. From your field itself, run into the mountains. And then he says, but woe to them that are with child. But as far as the women are concerned, those who are with child, it will be very difficult for them, because they cannot run away so quickly with a child. And to them that give suck in those days, and young mothers too with their babies, it will be very difficult for them to run away, because now they've got a baby to hold on to and while running away. And pray you that your flight may not, and also may you understand that, pray you that your flight may not be in the winter. And I hopefully that this calamity may not happen in the winter time, because in the summertime, at least you can somehow or the other survive in the daytime. But when nightfall comes in the winter, and if you're out in the open, it will be impossible. It will be impossible for you. You may not wake up in the morning in the winter time. Hypothermia will settle in, because there will be snow all around you, and you will die. So therefore, he says, pray that your flight may not be pray to God that this will not happen in the winter time. Let it take place in the summer, at least in the summer itself. Then he says, for in those days shall be affliction, and there shall be many various forms of affliction, such as was not from the beginning of the creation, which God created unto this time, neither shall be. So for in those days, such an affliction, such a great affliction wouldn't have transpired till that time, as was from the beginning of creation, from the time of creation itself. Such a great affliction wouldn't have transpired till that time, when it is going to happen. Since when God created unto this time. So till that, so that will be one of the greatest affliction which will fall the human race all around in that Middle Eastern region. And therefore he says, but, there is a but always, and except that the Lord had shortened those days, and these afflictions which you are going to suffer later on, maybe for a long period of time, but you may be fortunate, except that the Lord has shortened those days. If he had shortened those days, no flesh could be, unless God has shortened those days, no flesh should be saved. Unless God has shortened that period of desolation and misery and suffering, nobody would survive, except but for the elect's sake, except for the elect's sake, for the sake of the elect. So elect means there is a group of people in the world who are considered to be God's elect. And who are those people who are said to be God's elect? The true children of God. They are the ones who have been living their life with piety in their hearts, with goodness in their beings, with nobility and dignity, and therefore God will not allow, because of them, God will shorten the calamity which is going to occur in the near future because of the elect, because God has to save them. God has to protect them. So in that process, the others also may get protected, may not die, because God has to protect and keep the elect, the pious, the holy ones, the good ones, who are God-focused. So God cannot kill them, cannot destroy them. So for their sake, he may shorten these difficult times. For the elect's sakes, whom he had chosen. So in the world itself, God sees the good ones around. He had shortened, so he may shorten that period of suffering and calamity. And then in line 21, he says, and then if any man shall say to you, lo, here is Christ, or lo, he is there, believe him not. But during this period of calamity, some people will try to take advantage of it. So, and they will declare, lo, here is Christ, there is Christ. So, but do not believe that, because some people will try to take advantage of any bad situation by proclaiming that I am the Christ. So come to me, I'll save you. This is always the case. So here is Christ, oh lo, here is Christ, there is Christ, believe him not. Don't believe that. For 22, line number 22, for false Christ and false prophets shall rise and shall show signs and wonders to seduce, if it were possible, even the elect. Now, this is a very interesting line or a passage. For false Christ and false prophets shall come. And they have been coming all through human history, in all parts of the world. Who are these people? Who are these false Christ and false prophets which come your way? They shall show signs and wonders. They shall show signs. They shall perform miracles. And do wondrous things. For what purpose? To seduce you. That's the word he is using. To entice you, to seduce you, to make you, to capture you into their net. To capture you into their net. So that is the word, to seduce you, to capture you and put you into their net, by which they will show wonders and miracles, by manifesting some unusual phenomena. And what are those? Some of them have practiced the black arts or certain magical practices. So these black arts and magical practices, the dark sciences as they call it, and And these dark sciences, you may even call it tantric practices. They're called tantric practices in India. And India is full of these tantric people with tantric practices. Many of the Indian gurus and the Indian teachers have practiced these. I'm aware of it. I know it. I know that they have practiced these. So they have, a spiritual holy man would never go near that, never do it. But these are people who have deliberately practiced these black arts in order to mesmerize, capture, and seduce humanity, the mankind around them. And what are those? Dropping ashes. Dropping ashes. Holy ash here and there. Changing. I heard of an incident which was seen by a woman. They were all queuing up to have an audience of a famous Indian guru who was circulating in some part of the world. And so they were queuing and lining up. And this woman was standing behind another woman, and the woman in front was a young girl, a beautiful young girl. And the Swami plucked a flower and did something with his fingers. And lo and behold, the flower became a golden flower. And he gave it to that girl. That's a form of seduction. That woman would be so mesmerized by that act. And the woman behind saw that happen. And the woman behind was a more mature woman who is to come for my lectures. And the moment the Swami, when it became the turn of this woman, he realized that he was caught in his act. So the woman told me, he didn't even have the courage to lift up his head because he had been discovered in his mischief. So this is how, with their black arts, they seduce people. They capture them. These are the black magical practices. And that's what he is saying here. They shall show signs and wonders. They shall do wondrous things to seduce, if it were possible, even the elect. Even the elect, even the holy ones. Even the holy ones. They will try to entice them. So that is why in India we are very careful of the tantrics. Those who are tantric practitioners of some form or the other, we keep them at arm's length. We don't permit them to come near us. So that's what Jesus is saying here, giving you a word of caution. So they call this in different parts of the world as different practices. In Africa, it's called as voodoo. In other parts, in South America, in American jungle, it's called in another form. So therefore, all of these practices are relevant, are being practiced all over the world. So therefore, one must be very careful not to fall into this trap. But take you heed. But be careful. Behold, I have foretold you all these things. I have told you all these things. But in those days, in line number 24, but in those days after that tribulation, now we are coming into something very intriguing. In the next few paragraphs, the next few lines. Now, this is another great prophecy which Jesus made. He said, but in those days, at the time when those afflictions will be taking place. But in those days, after that tribulation, after that great calamity, wherein the earthquakes and the destruction of the city of Jerusalem and the whole entire countryside has been laid waste by the conquering Romans. They destroyed the whole place. So after that tribulation, something else is also going to happen. The sun shall be darkened. The sun shall be darkened at that time. And the moon shall not give her light. The moon also shall not give her light at that time. And the stars of heaven shall fall. The stars of heaven shall fall. And the powers that are in heaven shall be shaken. And the powers that are in heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. Now, this is a very intriguing phenomenon which was prophesied by Jesus. And this took place, this situation took place after this tribulation of the fall of the temple of Jerusalem, the destruction of Jerusalem. This happened. How did it happen? A shower of meteorites fell onto planet Earth in that particular area. And as it fell, the shower of meteorites, it vaporized. It according to history, it vaporized. And then what happened? Vapors came out. It happened in the night time, around about midnight. So that is why it says, and the moon shall not give her light. So it must have been a full moon night when it happened, and the moon shall not give light, because when the meteorites fell in the night, it vaporized and clouds of smoke got into the atmosphere, and it covered the moonlight, the moonbeam. And then when the morning came, still because of the vapor which was still there, the dark clouds, so also the sun did not shine. The sunbeam could not penetrate through because of the darkened clouds. So that's what they say, that even if an atom bomb falls somewhere, and if atom bombs are let loose in different parts of the world at the same time, then the cloud of smoke which forms, which emanate from these bombs, would cover the sun for days and days. It will be circulating around the earth, covering the sunlight. That will bring about a greater tragedy, they say. So they say. So similarly also such a phenomenon happened, wherein the meteorites fell down on planet Earth at that time in the Middle Eastern area. And the vapors, they rose and darkened the moon and the sun. And this prophecy was revealed by Jesus 35 years earlier. 35 years earlier. Now, then that's part of the prophecy. Then the second part of the prophecy was the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. The Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. That's the second part of the prophecy. So that Son of Man is Jesus. Where did Jesus come in his power and glory? Of course, he came to John, the disciple John, who wrote the Gospel of John. John was now nearly 95 years old, living in the island of Potamus as a prisoner of the Romans. He was in jail. And at that time, Jesus appeared with the angels to John. To John. So that is why it is said, the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. So that means the prophecy of Jesus manifested and transpired to John, who wrote the Gospels. And then Jesus, having come there along with the two angels, he asked John to write down the book of Revelations. The book of Revelations was dictated and written by John. At the end of the Bible, you have the book of Revelations. That is how that got commissioned. Because Jesus appeared along with the angels. And got John to write it down, take it down, all what he had seen. All what he had seen and heard. He had heard. So what he had heard from Jesus, and then what he had seen also. Because Jesus transported him for a short period to another realm of existence to show him what's going to happen and what will be. The things which were seen by John in the book of Revelations, he describes his experience as to what he saw in the higher heavenly regions. And that what he saw, he wrote down in the book of Revelations. So what he heard and what he saw, John took it down. So at that time, that was the coming of Jesus there. So Jesus' prophecy was fulfilled. That's rather intriguing and interesting. And then shall he send his angels and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. And then thereafter, then shall he send his angels and shall gather together his elect, those surviving good people, the elect, the surviving good noble people from the four corners, from the four winds, from the four corners of the earth, from the uttermost part of the earth, from all over the world to the uttermost part, to the heavenly region. They will be transported back. They will be transported from this situation. Now, having said this much, now learn a parable of the fig tree. When a branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So he's using another parable here of a fig tree. The signs, the signs, because the disciples asked, what are the signs by which we will know? So when a fig tree, when a branch is yet tender, the branch is tender and putteth forth leaves, and the leaves come, little leaves come, you know that summer is going to take place. Spring has transpired and now summer is going to come soon. So that's a sign, that's an indication. So in like manner, when you shall see these signs come to pass, you know that it is nigh even at the doors. So when these signs come, when these meteorites in the sky get darkened, so you will know that's a sign that the bad times have come. And then he says, so that is the sign that is indicating that meteorites and the shower of meteorites, the heaven shall be, the sun will not beam light, and the moon will be darkened. There are signs by which you will understand that very bad situation is going to ensue later on. Verily I say unto you, that this generation shall not pass till all these things be done. So now these are, and Jesus is going through his prophecy. And he's saying, verily I say unto you, that this generation shall not pass till all these things be done. So therefore, during the lifetime of his disciples, of these generations, these things are going to happen. So during the lifetime of his disciples and finally with John too, it transpired. So that's my indication here. So they will see all these things. And Jesus says one more thing, one more sentence. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. What I have said is the gospel truth, is very true indeed. Even if everything else goes, but my words which I have spoken now will remain true indeed, and they will truly transpire. And they did truly transpire because Jesus decided this happened, these incidences happened during the lifetime of Jesus' disciples. And the last one to die was John in his old age. So they perceived it. They saw all this happening. The tribulation which was prophesied happening and taking place in that part of the world. But, line number 32, but of that day and that hour knoweth no man. No man knows when that day and when that hour will come. No one is going to know about it. No, not even the angels. Even the angels will not know, which are in heaven. Neither the Son, but the Father. Only God the Father knows when it will transpire. Only God the Father knows when it will transpire. Therefore, since this is a situation, what should everyone do? And that's something which we will read now. Therefore, take you heed, watch and pray. That's all that you can do from now onwards, all through, until these tribulations come, and even thereafter too. Do one more thing, every one of you. Watch and pray. That is to say, be alert and be in a prayerful state. And as to what the mystic significance of this, I will elaborately mention this in our next presentation next week. Om Tat Sat.